Hi guys, it's Jay Dill here and welcome to News with an Alternative Perspective, and if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. So, you may or may not have seen my video on Wednesday, which was about the crisis in Calais, the migrants fleeing from Syria and Libya wanting to come into the UK and into France, and the new concrete wall being built next year. Now, what I want to talk about today, similar to the topic, is what do we do with the problem of migrants from Syria and Libya? What do we do? Do we let them in, or do we tell them to go out? Now, immigration, especially in countries in which the Western world has meddled with, is a very sensitive and very complex issue. So, I'll give you some of my views. I think one of the major problems with immigration is that immigration has been out of control for some time, in my opinion, since we joined the EU. I think that what's happened is a lot of hardworking migrants have come into the country, and the country has basically been in a recession for a very long time. The people at the top will tell you there isn't a recession, but there is, and there's not enough jobs to go around. Unfortunately, the government aren't creating more jobs, and they're not spending on what needs to be spent. Therefore, the resources for us nationals are sparse. Now, the issue with migration from countries like Libya and Syria is that we live in a country that had an empire once, a massive empire. We live in a country that has colonized so many different countries and ruined so many countries, and still continues to do so. The war in Syria is a fake war, just like the Iraq war. It was a wonderful and beautiful country. I had many friends who lived there and went there. It was a wonderful country that was targeted, a destabilization plan for the Middle East. 3.8 million Syrians have now been displaced and have literally got nowhere to go when they had a wonderful home. These migrants have lost everything. They have lost their houses, they've lost their homes, they've lost their jobs, and most of the time they've lost numerous family members, and a lot of them are on their own. And if they're lucky enough to have all their limbs intact, the Syrian war has taken the lives of hundreds of thousands of innocent children who are always the victim, and that's why war is never the answer. When countries decide to meddle unfairly and launch a war and fund rebels, fund them to the point and create jihadist camps like America has done. These camps are in Turkey and are in Iraq, to fund the rebels, and billions of pounds has been given to the rebels. And the main countries who are culpable for this are America, the UK, France, and Canada, and the Netherlands. So practically that's nearly that's a lot of Europe and a lot of North America. So who was the main instigator in this? Well, the main instigator for the foreign policy was America, as it always is. So what's the solution? The solution is we live in a country where most people congregate in the south. Because of lack of job opportunities and perceived differences, people are not settling and moving up north from the south, and this is part of the problem. Yes, we have a small country, but there is enough room for us all, especially if the government made sacrifices and sold off bits of land and really invested in the north of England properly and made it a thriving economy based on exports. We're a country that imports literally everything down to meat. It's absolutely ridiculous. We need a stronger economy in which we export more things, and that is an issue because of globalization. Now, we are a small country and America is a huge country. The answer is America. America instigated this war, the Iraq war, and the war in Afghanistan. So the answer is America needs to take its fair share of migrants. All the countries that decided to get involved in this absolutely shambolic illegal proxy war should take an equal share of the migrants, but countries that have a much bigger land span, like America, should take the bulk of it. America always does this with its foreign policy, especially because America knows and the foreign policy advisors know that the first place the migrants are going to come is to Western Europe, because physically the trip to America is far too long. They can't make it by boat. So where do they come? They come to Greece, then they go through Spain, and that's how they get here. If it was more feasible to get to America, they try to go to America, but it's too far logistically. And America uses that to its advantage. So while America and the foreign policy advisors can mess up the Middle East, we are picking up the pieces of that. Now, it's worth me saying that since these wars have happened, I haven't actually met one Syrian refugee or asylum seeker. I haven't actually seen any. So we're really not being flooded with refugees. They're being allowed to die at sea. Germany has taken out of Western Europe the bulk of the refugees, and Jordan and Lebanon have taken way more than 3 million each of the refugees. So the bulk of Syrian and Libyan and Iraqi refugees are in Lebanon and are in Jordan, and the few that are here are in Germany. There is a absolute crisis, and these people choose to come to the countries partly that are culpable in their destruction. Can you blame these people for wanting to come to a country like this? The fact is, our country has ruined these people's livelihood. They have nothing to lose. So our country owes them something. All the countries that were involved in this owe the refugees something. They can't just be left high and dry. And the solution is a large portion of them go to America. And each of the countries who went into this disgusting shambolic war put money in a pot to rehouse and help these poor people who are victims. And most of these victims are children. And those are the people that you don't really hear about. Refugees aren't the enemy. Scaremongering is just no use. The reality is we're not being flooded by refugees. We have and we were flooded by a big flux of immigration from when we fully joined the EU. And that's what happened to our country. You have to remember that these refugees are owed something by the member states that have destroyed their country. The real problem here is foreign policy. If foreign policy wasn't so divide and rule and conquer and so based on money, oil, lithium and globalism, then it would be different. There was no need for these wonderful countries, Libya, Iraq, Syria and Afghanistan, to be ruined. And it's an utter disgrace. The Middle East is an absolute chaos. And England, America and France and Germany, the four main players, owe these refugees. So that is my take on the refugee crisis. Let me know what yours is. Thank you for listening.